Hello everybody, Nitsa here, or you might also know me as Austin Ruthven. Don't you just miss school? Of course you don't! You only miss it because of the friends and activities you did that you can't do now because you're dependent on Craigslist to get a job or lose your virginity. But I digress. Anyway, after graduating high school, I went to a post-secondary school for digital film for 2 years, and have got to know some pretty great people and have made some really fun short films. And believe me, there was a ton of notes, so it wasn't all just computers and cameras. There's a lot of films I'm really happy to have made or been a part of. Some of these videos can be seen on my Nitsa94 YouTube channel, which will also link you to other videos I've been a part of at the end. There are at least 2 you won't be able to see unless the director decides to submit them to a film festival near you. But, not surprisingly, for every great film, there's also a weak film. The ones that are either poorly put together or had some sort of developmental issue. Does that mean we should be ashamed for them? No, I mean, every filmmaker has a stinker once in a while, and if you improved upon these problems, whether if they were flaws or developmental issues, these films just show where you have came from, and that you have the potential to contribute something great in a wonderful visual art. So for this countdown, I will talk about the top 10 worst college films that I made or was a part of. I'll mainly be looking over the bigger projects and not any films that were shot just to show how to do 3 different types of shots. Now, there is one important thing I should address to avoid unwanted commotion. This countdown is meant to show the weakest films I've been a part of or just didn't like, and not intended for any slander against the people who were a part of it. The people I've worked with are great people, and they've all made great films beyond these stinkers. And I don't hate most of these films on this list, they just have problems that I wish could have been done better. So to avoid any red flags, I won't provide links to most of these videos. If you want to watch them for yourselves, you'll either have to go to my Nitsa94 channel or search it up on your own. So without further student loans, let's talk about the top 10 worst college films that I made or was a part of.
You can stare at static for all the time. I don't care. I had enough. See ya.
This was definitely an attempt for me and a couple other guys to be more edgy with controversial content, and it was quite the video for our class to react to. That film being Nasty Boy. Now, to be honest, I kinda like this film. The project is supposed to be one continuous long shot from beginning to end. The story is about a bisexual psychopath who loves gore and sex. Starting with Nasty Boy himself, really guys, that was the best title you could come up with? I mean, you could have gone with jerking off to a gory image on his monitor, putting on a mask from V for Vendetta, stabbing a random person outside, and dropping his pants to roll the credits. I didn't know pulling down your pants could do that. I like this film mostly because it was fun playing as a sick psycho, and it takes inspiration from some product placements you might see in the background such as Watchmen, V for Vendetta, and 2 of my favorite films, The Dark Knight and A Clockwork Orange. In fact, it was taking the idea of Alex DeLarge if he liked gore over just violence and was bisexual. I even liked how it was color corrected and just the shocking nature of it. But the controversial nature is also the film's biggest problem. Now don't get me wrong, I like the dark nature of it, but it's not because it has it, it's because of the reaction it has caused, making it a laughing joke for quite a short while. Now sure, that could be seen as a good thing since it is being watched, but that's not the worst part. The worst part is that one of the guys who was a part of this project had his own mother see it, and she apparently didn't talk to him for 2 days straight. I don't know if that's over exaggerated, but it's pretty bad when a simple film can do that to your family. It took him and his father to convince her that it was just a school assignment and that we weren't intended to do this. This was our own creativity. But still, for 2 days? That's just low. Sure, art is subjective and people will have a different perspective on sex and violence being portrayed in film, especially when it's glorified, but as long as you don't take this film too seriously, then the shock value is worth your time, because in the end, it's just a school project. And I have no shame dropping my pants down for your entertainment. This was one of the first bigger projects filmed during the first semester for editing class, Bad Man. Now, there was no purpose for this project other than to make something and see how well it was edited together. The version I edited can be seen on my Nitsa94 channel. The idea is that we have a white man and a black man go into a bathroom. Great start so far. As the white guy, played by me, walks down a series of hallways while being stalked by the guy who went into the bathroom before. God, I'm making this sound creepier than it really is. Okay. Without giving it away, there's a twist ending that hardly had any evidence before its reveal. But that's not the worst part. The worst part about this project is that it's mostly filmed at establishing shots of two guys doing nothing but walking down hallways. That is lazy. Though I will forgive this project as we were only in our first semester, but that hardly redeems an overall project that is supposed to create a suspenseful atmosphere for what the stalker could be following the other guy for. Heck, the project we made after called Cold Drinker took the advantage of medium shots and close-ups, and they look gorgeous, especially with that snow in the background, which helps deliver a chilling atmosphere. Batman, on the other hand, if you're able to get some atmosphere out of it, great, but as a whole, this is an A+ if you were in a middle school film. So this was a project for the entire class where we placed a car in front of a green screen and faked driving down a bridge as we recreate a scene called Sins of the Father from the 2004 crime drama Collateral. I still have not seen the film in its entirety, but when I was watching the clip, I just found Tom Cruise's acting to be, well, stiff. Not saying he's a bad actor, it's just he came off as bland to me. So when I played the part, I wanted to at least show a bit of emotion in these lines. And by doing so, it's just awkward to watch.
Limos, huh?
Don't start.
Hey, I'm not the one lying to my mother.
Here's what she wants to hear.
Yeah, maybe the lines written for that scene works better with Tom Cruise's stiff acting. Watching this project is like watching Tom Cruise's complete opposite, which is strange because the student playing the driver does a better job and she's polar opposite to the driver for obvious reasons. I guess the stiff acting is intentional since it is a crime drama after all, and given the backstory, it would make sense for a character like this to be more cold. When I was doing the part, I was putting a little too much humanity into the character, making the overall scene completely unfitting. I'm no trained actor, and I don't claim to be good, but it came as a surprise to me when Tom Cruise did better acting stiff while I was trying to deliver an emotion. But then there's some shots where the audio is out of sync, which also doesn't help either.
They project onto you their flaws. What they don't like about themselves, their lives, whatever. And then they rank on you instead.
Maybe I underestimated the Scientologist himself, but as far as my acting goes, along with some terrible dialogue sinking, it's just a messy scene. And here, I am projecting on its flaws, what I don't like about it, after such hard work and whatever. And I can rank on it instead. Now, what would be a great way to start off a video about characters switching power? Oh, I know! How about memes to start it off? Okay, too much time on Facebook or somebody got bored with editing. However, once the film starts, it's actually not so bad. The acting between Ricardo and Quays is great, and while the set is basic, at least it looks like an office. But when the boss, played by me, comes down the hallway with Darth Vader music playing, it scares the two workers as they are using his office. Quays humorously tries to straighten out the desk, but then the film gets bad once one particular thing happens. I start talking.
Robinson!
Hey, boss. Bye, boss.
You do know you just showed a set light.
What you doing in my office?
Okay, I know. I'm sorry, man.
Hey, hello, Phil? You do know the camera not focusing on the lights is not gonna help us unsee them, right? Yeah, once my character comes in to switch the power over Quaze's character, which is the intended purpose of the project, we just got too lazy. As you can clearly see, we were using a classroom as a set, have standing lights in the background, and even show the case for the lighting equipment. Wow. That is extremely lazy. But then there is me as the boss.
Are you f***ing kidding me? This is the third time that you used my office. This is not some sort of playground.
Now, to my defense, I think this was more of a miscast to have me play as the boss. I'm just not the type of guy who could demonstrate dominance over Ricardo and Quaze. In fact, because of my age, I just look too young to be in this position.
You are fired.
And after we filmed this project, we later did Zero Heroes, which at least had ambition to it. And while I can't say it's good, we just went all the way with it, which makes it kind of fun to watch, and therefore it's not too bad to be on this list. Just like Batman, this project was just lazy. But we were 3 or 4 semesters in school, and these mistakes are just inexcusable. Especially when you are inspired to become a great filmmaker. And yeah, you might notice that I have acted in a lot of these projects, and that will become a problem that I will bring up later in this countdown. Switching of power assignment? More like switching from professionals to amateurs. We definitely deserve to be fired.
No, God, I need this job! Shit, man!
During sound design, we were intended to scrap the audio from a scene and add all the sound effects, Foley, and ADR ourselves. It was definitely a fun project for sure. And so I did a scene from one of my favorite movies of all time, A Clockwork Orange. And while I can't say this is a terrible project, it does have serious problems. I did the voice replacement for the woman singing Beethoven, as well as the dialogue for Alex and Dim.
Hello, Lucy. Had a busy night.
Now, of course, we're not supposed to sound like the characters to get a good mark. As long as it's in sync, we should be fine. And while I am crap compared to the excellent performance of these actors, there was one thing that was worse than my ADR. The mics we used was absolute shit. We used an SM58 mic, which is something that's recommended to use, if it didn't catch every possible sound in the room. We were restricted to replacing audio in our classroom, and it's not designed to block unwanted noise. And on top of that, breathing into the mic is way too easy of a mistake to make, which I do in the project itself. Hasn't anyone ever heard of a windbreaker? The biggest flaws with this project is more of a technical issue than just me poorly voicing these characters' lines. And last I checked, ADR was in a sound recording studio, not a goddamn classroom with mics that work like shit with audible air conditioning. Needless to say, it was fun hearing our voices replace the characters from the films we chose to ADR, but on a professional level, it is just bad. Remember Nasty Boy? Well, I ended up working with one of the guys who my character murdered, named Adam. I like working with this guy, mostly because his ambition is admirable. Some projects he's made are pretty funny, and all the intent to be so. However, when I made this one project with him, we just ended up making a stinker in the end. Now, to be fair, anything with the black and white visuals of the detective, played by Alex, is the best part of this project. But when we cut to the case he is talking about, it is just bad. Not only am I stiff and my acting is absolute shit, but the idea is that Adam is a Viper wearing an Ewok toque who stabs victims with a painful dose of a drug that causes a long death, all because the character is bored. Now, to be fair, the idea itself can work as a great satire, and I think that's what Adam was going for. However, the overall execution itself was just piss poor. People told me that Adam's acting is worse, but...
No, thank you.
But it'll make you feel happy.
I said no, thank you.
Yeah, no guys, I'm definitely worse than Adam in terms of acting here. Really, the only redeemable quality is the black and white scenes with Alex, but the scenes with the detective and the Viper seem so separated. It was definitely one of the worst films I've worked on, and Adam has definitely done better than this. Needless to say, the next time you want to do serial killing, I think it's best if you stick with a V for Vendetta mask instead of trying to look like Killer Winnie the Pooh.
What happens to people when they get bored? They do weird stuff.
I loved film studies. It was one of those classes that felt more like school, and it was fun learning about film history. We made 2 film projects during this course. The first one being The Traveler, which is supposed to follow the formula of a Charlie Chaplin film. The second one had to be a Soviet montage, and the best part is that I got to direct the Soviet montage called Alice in Horrorland. The premise is that Alice, played by Christina, is given drugs by her friends and she wakes up in a nightmarish dream being haunted by her friends. The colors of the dream were so over-exaggerated, but it added to the feeling we were aiming for. So once we finished filmmaking, we wrapped up, sent those clips off to the editor, and awaited for what I had directed. It was bad. The thing is, the only positive I can give this film is Christina's performance and just the visuals of her insane dream. But the way it was edited was not only rushed, but it was half-assed editing. There was like 3 shots missing from the beginning that allows her real world to sink in. She wakes up in Horrorland way too soon, and there was no build up to her friends haunting her. And the montage is just random with no consideration of letting the atmosphere drive the story. Even just the guy picking her up and putting her on the table and waking up, it's just, ugh! Seriously, editor? Did you think people would be bored if you didn't cut too soon? Even the credits are like, haha, that's all folks, goodbye. It's just not good. And I want to be a film director, but showing this would be an insult to what I want my direction to be. As far as I'm concerned, the editor was the director of this project. It was like he edited this film at last minute. And the thing is, he did, but for an understandable reason. Apparently he admitted he had a better version until he accidentally spilled coffee on his laptop, destroying it entirely. Thankfully, someone had the files as they both quickly put it together in a couple of hours before class, and what we got in the end was a rushed bad film that could have been great if they allowed the atmosphere to sink in, and they don't. I mean no disrespect to the editor, he's definitely done good work, but this is not one of them. But at least to his defense, he does have an excuse for why it was rushed. Alice in Horrorland? More like Alice in Rushedland. When I was working on projects, it was mostly between acting and grip work. However, my dream goal is to be a film director and a writer. So when I got the opportunity to do a commercial or a PSA, I decided to go with a commercial idea I've had since the first semester in film studies. As for the PSA, I helped on a puppet commercial called Fun and Games, which was definitely a good project. As for my commercial, well, the idea was to advertise the ocarina using an Ocarina of Time. The premise was that a boy and a girl would be on opposite ends of a tree playing on the ocarina, as music from the Zelda games would provide that nostalgic atmosphere. I got the actors to do the part, the male actor actually had a blue tunic, which was a bonus, and a student helped me find an ocarina since buying 2 online would take too long to get to me before the due date. But then something great happened. The instructor decided to have the entire class help me shoot this project. I mean, sounds amazing, right? I mean, what in all possibility can go wrong? Rush planning and creative differences on location. I was really looking forward to presenting an amazing, soothing commercial that would have the Zelda vibes to it, as well as encourage people to buy an ocarina themselves. but the execution in the end was just half-assed. And what pisses me off is that I wanted this to be the big film that would say, yes, I can direct, I can bring a full, fresh vision on the screen. But there were 3 things that sabotaged the intent I want for this project. 1, the producer was insistent to do on location by an actual tree instead of in front of a green screen, which worked against my vision because not only did the winter weather and modern day background make the visuals look dull, but adding the Chamber of Sages visual to it proved to be a royal pain as I had nothing to key out behind the actors. The second thing is that I was unable to hire a composer to do the music, so I had to rip a song from somewhere else, which hardly gets the feeling I wanted. And the third reason is because the commercial could only be 30 seconds long. Now, I did make a 30-second version of it, which is half-assed, but only because it was limited to the requirements of the assignment. As for the full version, I never got the inspiration to continue editing it, because everything I wanted the commercial to become just made me look like a fanboy trying to do something cool with Zelda content, rather than something that was meant to be soothing or have any feeling to my favorite video game franchise of all time. I wouldn't say it was the ambition that ruined it, it was how limited I was to bring the full vision to life. Maybe I might revisit this project again in the future and remake it, but as is, it is a failure. Now, every project I've mentioned before has some sort of flaw or embarrassing moment to it. But no project can be any more embarrassing from beginning to end than the horrendous Fair Use Quarrel. Okay, first of all, was that really the best title you could come up with, Austin? Like, really? Hell, one of the working titles was Fair Use Dispute, and that rolls off the tongue a lot more better. Second, this was more of a YouTube rant video with memes instead of what it was intended to be. A documentary. Every other project was at least like a documentary, one being about a performer's career, one being about disabled people going beyond their limits, and even another talking about the discreet life of graffiti art. This project, which was my idea by the way, was shit. Now, since I run a gaming channel, I depend greatly on the laws of fair use, and I felt like my classmates should be aware of it. For those of you who don't know, fair use is the doctrine that gives people the legal right to use copyright material without payment or permission to the copyright holder, as long as it's intended for satire, parody, criticism, commentary, education, or news reporting. And unfortunately, it's still a law that's being ignored to this day, with companies that will issue a DMCA to strike your livelihood, with them having more power than you, which is totally wrong and needs to be known by my classmates if copyright becomes an issue further down the line in their careers. However, I kid you not, the entire video was me doing a rough recording of the script, which I never re-recorded. And my partner added Google Images as placeholders, and we were stupid enough to keep a lot of it in. We did interviews with 3 students who unfortunately didn't help with what I wanted to fight for, and the lighting on them was just awful. And on top of that, the film is less about learning something or seeing other people's opinions, and it's mostly just me ranting about how the DMCA is being abused for greed. Ultimately, this became not a documentary. This became a shitty rant video that failed to deliver the issue properly, at least in terms of being a documentary. This film was an unintentional joke, and I am embarrassed by it. And not only did it hardly get the point across, but it also made me look unprofessional, which nearly ruined my reputation as a filmmaker in front of my own classmates. This is hands down the worst film I have ever made in college. No contest. Number 1, however, is, well, as I've mentioned before, I want to be a director and a writer. And while I have directed projects during college, unfortunately, I did more acting and grip work than directing altogether, which is depressing because I don't want to look like I'm proclaiming what I am when I barely have the films to prove it. However, I was given the opportunity to direct one film, one that is about reflecting the dark side of life and depression, and that film ultimately became What is Life? God, I hate this film. If you ever want to know a lowest point in my college years, this project is one of them. Now you might be asking, how bad is this project? Well, here's the thing. The project is not bad because it's a bad film. On the contrary, it's well done. So what is the real problem? The problem is that I didn't direct this project. That's right, the reason I despise this film is not because of what it is, but how it came to be. The behind the scenes. Now, I will try to address this controversy without encouraging any slander against the people who are a part of it. And trust me when I say that it's not hard to do it back at that person when they did it to me. Without mentioning names, we had the idea and theme of what the project was going to be. So I thought of the type of shots that would represent emptiness by having little to no people in it, other than the actress herself, performed by Christina, goddammit! However, before I could plan out the shots, I had to wait for our writer to finish the poem. And guess what he did? He dropped out. However, he's not the number one person I am angry at. The person I am angry at decided to write the poem themselves and hire the actors. Which is good, because all I had to do was have the script sent to me, plan out the shots, and direct the project I was really looking forward to adding to my demo reel. So I opened up my messages, and hell broke loose. I was being bullied by being called indecisive and not assertive enough to manage directing a project. These screenshots you see are real messages that were sent back and forth between us, and let me tell you, I f***ing hate this person's attitude. Imagine having to talk to a rich woman with a behavior where she acts like there's two kinds of people in this world. Winners and losers. You know, the ones that are like, whatever. That is the type of person it felt like I was talking to. Now, around this time, I barely directed a single project, at least not one big enough to give me recognition as a director. I wanted to direct this project so I would have something to show that I can do that kind of position. But then I got slammed down with more slander and disgusting words over someone who has directed a few projects beforehand. Well, whoopie frickin' do! I am so glad you don't have to travel for an hour between school and home. Now, the message goes on by saying I'm the type of person who needs help when doing this kind of stuff, to which I say, who doesn't? No director can manage every f***ing position and make a good film. That's why directors have assistant directors and cinematographers. People had to limit George Lucas when he directed A New Hope, and you know what? It ended up being a great film because he had the help needed to make this film become a reality. Films are not made by just one brain. If so, then you get the Star Wars prequels. They are made with a collaboration of people, and we only had like 4. When I ask for assistance, it's for the better direction of the film, not because I don't know what the f*** I'm doing. I could go on and on how wrong she is about me. She used my current reputation against me and slammed it down spontaneously out of nowhere when I did nothing wrong. Not only sabotaging me as a human being, but it was made well aware by my classmates. They went ahead by having every dark reality in the film explained by having an actor in almost every single shot. The reason I gave the directing position to someone else is because this was against my vision. And I was blamed for not being able to stand up as a leader only because they went ahead with something I didn't want and used slander against me before I even saw the script itself, which I needed to do anything. Now, you might be asking, how would I have done this differently? Well, for one, I wouldn't have most of these actors in the film to get across depression. Depression is a feeling of emptiness, not obvious symbolisms that are too physical with people crying or getting hurt. Sure, film is about showing and not telling, but this film shows way too much, making it too pretentious. My intention was to show little to no people, and show an empty world that is losing its reason for us to live it. It would help present that loneliness and empty feeling this film was so obviously trying to get across by showing too much. And while we were filming this, I already knew I was going to hate it from the start. I was given the assistant director position after I dropped out of the director position, and even then I was still being slammed for not knowing what I was doing. Oh, well maybe it's because you worked against my vision and gave me this position at the last fucking minute. After this film was showed, I made it clear to my instructor that I was being slandered. So what he did is that he had us work on the next project together again against our liking. And while I didn't direct the next project, we at least were able to make a film about transgender awareness, which was definitely a good film in the end. I even apologized for any hateful things I said, to which I never got an apology back for being bullied. Instead, she repeated that I needed to be more secure in my position as a director, which would be good advice if you didn't purposely take the project out of my hands and bullied me as if I were responsible for your doing. Needless to say, I have a strong hate for this film. And while she does repeat this again in her last semester, I am just glad not to be working with this person again. She's talented and can hold a position in the film industry, but if you use slander against other people just because of your own ego and arrogance, then nobody will want to work with you unless your presence is needed. So there you go. Those were my top 10 worst films that I made or were a part of in college. And in the end, you must think that I had a bad time in school. And the truth is, no. There are more than a dozen projects I've worked on that I am proud of, and a good few that I've directed. I think one of the biggest problems is that I volunteered to do too much acting in a lot of these projects that it overshadowed me directing the ones I did direct. If more people remember me for doing Nasty Boy over the third act of The Accused, then there's a good example of why I'm not seen as a director. And films like the Ocarina commercial and Fair Use Quarrel don't help either, since they were failures. So, does that mean I hate them? Sort of, but not really. In fact, I am glad to have made these failures. Sure, making good stuff counts as success, and people would hire you for it, but failure is an opposite side of the coin. Both success and failure are needed for an art form to evolve, as well as an artist himself or herself. I'd rather fail in school than be unprepared in the film industry. Failure is a learning experience and everybody went through it. Film is a visual art that is subjective. There's no perfect formula or person to do good films. It just comes down to what your past experiences have taught you to better yourself, and nobody should be ashamed for their mistakes when they've shown their ambition. And yes, some projects can be out of your control. Despite the slander I got and how unjustified it was, you know what? This kind of stuff happens a lot in the film industry. People are always getting fired when they've done nothing wrong. People will always be replaced. Does that make these people total assholes? Absolutely, but this kind of stuff is inevitable and unavoidable, but necessary to make a film become a reality. While I still think the slander against me was pure bullying and I deserve an apology for it, the thought process on that person's mind is that we had a film we needed to complete. They don't care if it was good or not, as long as it gets done in the most efficient way as possible, and I was an easy target to take away that opportunity. The thing is, nothing is perfect, and nothing should be. Tension will always happen, and failures will happen at some point in your life. But as long as you keep moving forward and prove your worth when the time is right, you can do what people deny you to be. I am a film director, and nobody can tell me otherwise. And with my new web series coming soon, I will show you that all that negativity will pay off. The worst that can happen is failure, and that's not entirely a bad thing as people say it is. I will make this web series happen and continue with the career I am passionate about. All the negativity I endured is in the past, and what carries forward is something better than what I was before. I am Austin Ruthven, and I am a filmmaker. Thank you so much for watching this countdown, and all I can say is, at least I know one way to end a video.